Today in Luther's Kitchen, I'm making the best scones, period. I'm gonna make two different varieties, one on the savory end and one on the sweet end, but I'm gonna use the same basic dough formula. So for the savory scones, I'm chopping some parsley and some chives. I'm grating some Parmesan cheese. I'm also going to mince some garlic so that I can have a really nice garlic herb, savory, buttery, flaky, delicious scone. These are great for brunch. The trick to these scones is in the butter. For the dry mix, I'm combining flour, a tad bit of sugar, kosher salt, and baking powder. Now, the best part about these scones is the way that they flake and just melt in your mouth. And to achieve that, you need to use super cold butter and you need to grate the butter. So before you make the scones, about an hour before, you're gonna pop a stick of unsalted butter in the freezer. Using a box grater, you are going to grate the butter into these small shreds of just amazing fats. You are then gonna combine those shreds with the dry ingredients using either 2 forks, you can use your hands, but your hands are gonna create heat and melt the butter, or what I like to use is a pastry cutter. Get all that combined before adding the wet ingredients. For the liquid ingredients, you are going to combine super cold heavy cream or super cold buttermilk with 1 egg. Whisk the egg well before combining. After you've dropped in your liquid ingredients, you want to add any add-ins that you're including. So in this case, I'm putting in my parsley, chives, minced garlic, and Parmesan cheese. Again, you don't want to melt the butter. As soon as your mixture forms a dough, you're going to remove to a piece of parchment paper, and I like to cut my scones into triangles from a rectangle. So I'm arranging this mixture into a rectangle, and for this particular batch, I made 2 more narrow rectangles so I could make smaller triangles, little petite scones. I then wrap it and then I chill it for a couple hours before pulling it out and cutting it into triangles, spacing them out onto a baking sheet pan lined with parchment paper, brushing them with some heavy cream, and you could sprinkle them with a little sea salt before popping them into a preheated 400-degree oven. These are going to bake for about 18 to 25 minutes. You want to be very careful, watch them, because you don't want these to burn and you don't want the cheese to get too overdone. Now for the sweet scones, I'm using the same base, but I'm adding a little more sugar. So I'm starting again with flour, sugar, kosher salt, baking powder. Then to that, I'm adding grated, super cold, frozen, unsalted butter. Giving that a good mix with my pastry blender or 2 forks before adding in the wet ingredients, which again is heavy cream and an egg or buttermilk and an egg. Once all those ingredients are incorporated, you want to add any kind of mix-ins. I'm using dried cherries and chocolate. You could put in cranberries and add in some orange zest for a cranberry orange scone. You could also use blueberries. Be very careful if you're using fresh fruit though. You don't want to break the fruit and, make it look all mushy. I have a list of different add-ins that you could include on the recipe located on my website. Once all your mix-ins are combined, and if it's not coming together in a dough, feel free to put in a little bit more heavy cream, but do like maybe a couple teaspoons at a time. You don't want the dough to become too loose. You're going to do the same thing, get it on a piece of parchment paper, make a log, 2 of them if you're making smaller versions, and I like to cut them in triangles back and forth, put it onto a parchment lined baking sheet pan. These also get a brush of heavy cream, and then I like to sprinkle on sugar for the sweet ones, salt for the savory, sugar for the sweet, pop them in the 400-degree preheated oven. And when these come out after 18 to 20 minutes, they are amazing. For this recipe and more, visit myclasscancook.com.